Okay, we are rolling, and we are going to thematically bind this episode with a 90-second clip of Michael Parenti, an American political scientist and intellectual of the American left, speaking about the reality that essentially undergirds all U.S. policy, both foreign and domestic, especially when it comes to the police and national security state, which we'll be talking about today. Why is it happening? Because of this reason.
Understand, you're dealing with people who are insatiable. You're dealing with people who are absolutely ruthless. We are dealing with addicts. It's not true that coke or heroin is the worst addiction in America, or cigarettes or alcohol. The worst addiction, the most crippling, the most damaging addiction is wealth. These people are just out of control. They just want more and more and more. And they're not unlike the ruling classes of all history. If the ruling classes of all history have ever wanted anything, there's only one thing they've ever wanted, and that's everything. They want all the lands, all the choice crops, all the herds, all the rich mineral deposits. They want control of all the labor, all the markets. They want all the civilities and comforts and luxuries of civil society while paying none of the costs. They want everything. And then when they got everything, they want still more. They want gold chalices to drink out of. They want $1,000 bills to light their cigars. They want, of course, the ruling class has learned since the days of the robber baron, they're not as crass and crude about it. But they are just as ruthless in their dedication to this accumulation.
Exactly. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So just about every problem in your day-to-day life comes down to that. And to discuss it from the perspective of state control and violence, we're joined by co-host Mark Wayne, coming to us from California, and returning contributor Jalissa DeGrow, an independent journalist based in Florida. She covers Middle East conflicts and explores the influence of Western governments and media on these conflicts in the region. And myself, Greg Stoker, generally in Texas, currently in Belfast, Ireland, and we are here representing three of the worst ICE detention states in the whole country / world. So isn't that nice, guys?
I'm glad we could come together for that, at least.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Awesome. I know Mark, I think Sunday released an ICE episode, but we are going to be focusing more on the technology that undergirds the entire apparatus. So today we are talking about Palantir, the Lost Seeing Stone specifically, but also Anduril, Flame of the West, and Mithril, the strongest of all metals, kind of. And now we have not pivoted into being a Lord of the Rings lore podcast. Palantir Technologies, Anduril Industries, and Mithril Capital, all of these Tolkien named defense and venture capital companies, all founded by Western supremacists like Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, who see themselves as wardens of the dying light of the West, are coming for your data, tax dollars, and freedom. And they tested it, of course, on Palestinians first. So these guys are all part of this like techno-feudal oligarch dork cabal that builds lethal AI and has direct hotlines to Trump, influencing policy and getting those sweet government contracts. But they're not dorks because they're into AI. They're dorks because they missed the point of Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, unless they're actually trying to be Sauron. So hello and welcome to Colonial Outcasts, the anti-imperialist podcast that your MAGA uncle might hate less today than he did yesterday, as that entire cult of personality is fragmenting yet again with the advent of this new Palantir deal to create a national database that is unprecedented in history. It will include tax filings, student debt, social security, perhaps campaign contributions, bank accounts, medical claims, and immigration status. So no previous database system has ever centralized this much personal info across various federal agencies. If you, like me, are a critic of like China's social credit system, totally valid to disagree with me on that. Just know that in the hands of Palantir, a data analysis company founded in 2003, partially backed by the CIA's venture capitalism arm, In-Q-Tel, the new American edition is going to be so much more repressive and targeted. So, I mean, we could talk all about that, but this story, guys, was just breaking a couple like yesterday, and it caused quite the stir. And just for some context, MAGA world is kind of, I would say, torn about it. Mark, if you're done tinkering around, uh,
I was
they had
eating a
this.
cookie, dude. I'm at breakfast.
Oh, you're eating your
camera.
okay.
Just
Yeah,
a
I
cookie, just
forgot.
one.
It's 6 p.m. for me, but I was under the impression that like right-wing influencers like Steve Bannon were really obsessed with this idea of like the social credit score in China and
Yeah.
how it can bar you from getting like leases and traveling. But it seems like we're kind of setting the precedent for that, and that's kind of weird.
I feel like we called this like a while ago, like last year. I feel like we predicted that MAGA was going to be cheering on this police state in the name of like racism against immigrants and whatever paranoia against minorities they had. And then when reality started to set in, that this tool would be used by anybody, including future administrations, because even from a MAGA perspective, if I put myself in their shoes and I'm thinking of the power, the sheer amount of power that we are giving the federal government in the name of whatever name we're doing it now, who, let's just say a Democrat gets elected in the next election cycle. Now they have that power. And I always wondered why they never had that foresight. That's me thinking from like a MAGA perspective, if I wanted to do that, which even from a MAGA perspective, you would think it'd be very foolish, right?
Yeah.
But I just want to point out that this rollout of Palantir, I remember you and I talked to you about this before plenty of times, is that each administration has built upon each other. So the Democrats laid foundation work for this as well. And then whenever Trump got in office, the last time, he built it, and then Biden built it, and then Trump is building on top of that. So all these administrations build on each other. They're not working in opposition to each other, which has been the liberal narrative that they've been working in opposition. And I feel like finally
we're conservative narrative too.
It's been the conservative narrative too. So I feel like that illusion is now shattering, which I see that as a positive.
Yeah, and just to like clarify, under the Biden administration, Jalissa, you were in Florida during the whole COVID thing, I assume, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And wasn't that the epicenter of the conservative movement being like they are trying to control us and track us?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I moved here like as soon as COVID broke out into Florida, and they were in just total opposition of it, Floridians in general. I mean, for like generally speaking, the state did try to enforce some of those, like if you're not vaccinated, if you don't have a mask, you can't come into this restaurant. But it immediately, I'll say, like fell off. Like it wasn't shortly after that. You guys probably remember the reports of like people spring breaking in Miami, and they were like, should we charge them? Should we send them to jail? Like total opposition, Trump flags everywhere, protests and things like that. And so it was like super huge. They just were completely against it. Yeah, it was insane. And the like the perception from the outside in, because was also very interesting to look at, because I was moving from North Carolina, which was a blue state, I believe, at the time when I was moving down to Florida, and they were like what's going on, like none of them wear masks, and I was like, no, come on, they have to, like it's not it can't be that different. And it's so different. They did not care. Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah, but now that there's this combined database that's also going to process medical claims and medical records that can be accessed by pretty much every 3-letter agency. That's the impression right now. It was broken in the New York Times that Palantir was going to get tasked with the contract to do this and build this database system. We're going to talk about what Palantir actually does here in a second. There's been a lot of cope from the right, and there's been like on Twitter, like very prominent accounts like Patriot Takes. That's a big MAGA I don't know. I think you may be on Twitter, Jalissa, more than I am, but saying things like, "Was MAGA a psyop?"
Yeah, I think MAGA. Let me say this. I think we could have seen this coming. Donald Trump is not against a surveillance state. He was never opposed to a surveillance state. He was it wasn't under his control. It wasn't his surveillance state. That's all it was with Donald Trump. And so I think people long-term, it's like, there were signs, okay? There were signs like Donald Trump saying that his personal like he was infiltrated by the deep state, and that his personal information and personal privacy was, infringed upon by the deep state and things like that. Donald Trump is not, against the deep state. It could, I guess at the end of the day, we can say it was a psyop, but, the entire rhetoric of the of the MAGA movement is primarily built off of this anti-deep state rhetoric. Ever since they came out, you see, like, just on a small example, like, it's like, we're going to release these files and we're going to release these files, and this is what we're going to give you. And we believe in 100% transparency. And so now, like, this transparency, it's a lie. And so now when we're moving towards, accumulating your financial information, your banking information, your school information, your social security, and things like that, what are they saying? That it's like, it's under the guise of, like, they're just consolidating to make it easier, right? Isn't that what they're saying?
This was a Doge effort.
Yeah, like, this was a Doge effort, and we saved all this money and all these jobs, and we're consolidating, so it's just like one big base, and you can no, that's like, we've been fine for years and years and years, and now all of a sudden it's like we need to consolidate and cut down, and we need to bring everybody's information into one, like, one tank. And so it's like, I think it was a psyop. I think we could have seen this coming. Donald Trump is not against a surveillance state. It's just that it's not, he wants it to be his surveillance state, his control state.
Well, I think that it's combined with the back to blue, which I do believe was a psyop, because there, under the Obama administration, there was a huge paranoia about a police state coming in the right wing circles. I don't know if you remember that. There was a
Yeah.
lot of your Alex Joneses out there, your Glenn Becks, your right wing. I don't know. I guess your prophets of the right. We're talking about a coming police state. So in order to counter that, in order to kind of overcome that in the right, you did the back to blue and MAGA, and you combine those two movements, back to blue and MAGA, with the BLM protest, creating this paranoia that there's going to be some type of race war or something like that. All that meshed in. And then here's where the liberals come in during COVID. Palantir was involved in data integration when it came to vaccine mandates and tracking people's data when it came to tracking the spread of COVID. So, for example, Palantir was involved in geolocate. Like, I don't know if you remember, there's a lot of controversy surrounding this idea that if you were infected, then they could track your phone and now track where the spread of the virus was going.
Yes.
Right. So liberals, of course, were on board with that. Be like, oh, yeah, that's good. It's for public health. All of this, again, it's stacking on top of each other and building this behemoth that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And going back to this idea of, the social credit score, which, again, I mentioned Steve Bannon and other people like him are very obsessed with, this Chinese surveillance state. That's why we need to, like, not have that, to fight them. While China's system is a complex, evolving system that assigns ratings to individuals and businesses based on their behavior and compliance with various regulations, it is not a single nationwide score that dictates citizens' lives, but rather a collection of data and systems used to assess trustworthiness and compliance. The system, at least on paper, aims to promote a more honest and harmonious society by rewarding good behavior and punishing bad behavior, ultimately influencing access to services and opportunities. And while there's a widespread misconception of a central social credit score, a nationwide unified system doesn't exist. So the system primarily focuses on tracking the trustworthiness of businesses, this is China, and organizations, with individuals mainly impacted through their roles as agents of those entities. So it's actually ostensibly geared towards entities, not individuals. I mean, there's going to be some disagreement on that, but here in America, we won't even have that veneer by the looks of what we're seeing, what the New York Times is reporting. And as things stand now, it's all about the citizens, not the businesses or agencies. It looks like it will be more centralized than China's by the simple virtue that it stands to be run by a single publicly traded defense and law enforcement contractor. So Again, Palantir, founded in 2003 by Western supremacist billionaires Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, amongst others, produces software like Gotham and Foundry that specializes in analyzing vast amounts of data to identify patterns and trends, making them valuable tools for intelligence agencies, both oriented domestically and abroad. So, yeah, Mark, you brought up that phone tracking COVID system. They don't just do that. We have international audience here. Okay. So take notes. What's happening here is going to get replicated in your own countries, like everywhere in Europe, the Gulf states, Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, Lebanon, El Salvador, Argentina, everywhere that the U.S. wants the comprador ruling class, which supports its interests, to survive. This already happens, but it's going to get worse. So Palantir first came into the mainstream media spotlight in 2018, at least from my perspective. I kind of missed out like the whole what it was doing before. But when it came onto my radar when its predictive algorithms, particularly in the context of predictive policing, raised significant ethical concerns due to potential bias and lack of transparency. So while Palantir claims to offer a trustworthy data foundation and continuously improve models based on feedback, the practical application of these algorithms has been criticized for reinforcing existing inequalities. Duh. Okay, like i.e. deploying predictive policing systems to which use data analysis to identify areas where crime is likely to occur. And this approach aims to proactively, again on paper, reduce crime by focusing police resources on these areas. And of course, algorithmic bias can lead to disproportionate targeting of specific communities like poor and people of color people, obviously. Now, your personal finances, every aspect of the material conditions of your life, your political donations, government benefits, firearm records will all be a single click away for dozens of government agencies. If you're on the traditional right, you probably see this as a gross manifestation of the deep state. And if you're on the traditional left, not liberal, you see this as capitalism collapsing into authoritarian fascism, which is obviously a redundant term. Either way, the performative effect is the same. The militarization of the police and surveillance state, which has been steadily increasing since its inception in the 19th century, and this is the plan. Like the increasing militarization of all of this is the plan for the housing crisis, I believe, the climate displacement plan, the next COVID pandemic plan, the healthcare plan, the you criticized Israel plan, the political dissident plan, the fact that life is too expensive to live plan. Like these billionaires who control our government know what's going to happen. I think they're not stupid. They're building bunkers, buying private islands, employing more and more special operations security forces, because in the event of a mass uprising, we all know from history that there are never enough soldiers and never enough cops. These databases and predictive algorithms are force multipliers.
I was just about to say that
Yeah.
the term that we're looking for is force multipliers. It's to better make what little resources they have as far as manpower more efficient. But to tack onto that, in the way of overcoming this lack of manpower from the federal government, that's why they're outsourcing with these contractors. They're kind of throwing out a big call for all your white supremacist groups and all your
deputizing border militias.
and I knew that they were going to be doing this. I knew that they would not have enough manpower. That's what the MAGA movement was for. That's how I've always seen the MAGA movement. The MAGA movement is a way of outsourcing federal government power to people who would normally be against heavy government power and branding it as being a homeland protection against the criminal immigrants who are flooding our borders and just killing everybody in all of our towns. You create the paranoia, and I just want to tack on that part of the cultural war that they've been doing is by sending these podcasters and public figures like the Sean Ryans of the world. You just fill in the blank with whatever
And wokeness.
And wokeness. All of these guys, if you notice that they put a lot of money and resources into making these well-produced documentaries about the crisis at the southern border. I saw this particular episode being advertised by Sean Ryan saying that there are terrorists coming into this country from the southern border and we have no idea who they are. And you better stock up on beans, bullets, and band-aids to the rafters because things are about to get gnarly. We're facing a homeland invasion. That created the paranoia. So now people are desperate for a solution. What's the solution? Trump consolidating power in the executive and then rolling out Palantir. That's the savior to the boogeyman, right? And I also want to point out that the groups that have been affected over the years by Palantir, it's really interesting when you look at it. You have immigrants who have been targeted, you have minorities, but you also have your preppers, your patriot groups, like your militia patriot groups have been tracked by Palantir. And not only that, you have labor unions. Palantir has specifically targeted labor unions. So it's kind of like, okay, what's the pattern here? It's obviously not for safety. And that should have been the red flag to the people on the right. If they're targeting labor unions, what the fuck does that have to do with security? What the fuck do preppers have to do with homeland security? So this is a very all-inclusive shit show that everybody should be concerned about. And I think that that's an opportunity for some type of unity, maybe, if that's possible. You think that's possible? Maybe we can have some type of unity about this, you would think. So I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of look to the Floridians for like how susceptible people will be to that. I don't know. What's the? I'm sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, it's okay. Are you talking about in terms of doomsday prepping?
Well, not in terms of doomsday prepping. I mean, in terms of
just across the board, the different group sections of our society who have been affected and targeted by Palantir. Is there possibility for unity there?
Do you see people disaffected by things like this?
Well, first of all, I'll address that let me say, like, here in Florida, right? Because we have MacDill Air Force Base. This is I practically live in like the military city. And, I used to work in defense contracting. And so I was like in this environment for a very long time where this was really huge amongst contractors, especially now, more than ever before. And so the military community is absolutely, loving this. The government community is absolutely loving this because of the way that they're framing it. Of course, they create these events and then these pretexts, manufacture consent, and pretty soon we're rolling out we're taking everybody's information and putting it into one database. Now, like, as far as the targeting for like ICE raids and things like that, huge. Like, it's huge. I made a video the other day that you have universities in Florida now, because if I'm correct, ICE is part Palantir, and ICE uses software from Palantir, right?
Yeah, they've called Palantir made an entire database server for them called Immigration OS, Immigration Operating System.
Oh, yeah. So Florida has now partnered, 13 universities in Florida have partnered with ICE so that campus police can detain students that don't even have to be illegal immigrants. They could be on F1 visas, student visas. You could have just said the wrong thing, that goes against the empire and things like that. And so that's huge. There's a huge crackdown here in Florida. It's really bad. I've seen ICE raids in Florida. I have seen raids on campuses. It's really bad. I would say immigrants overall, the most affected inside of Florida, for right now.
Right, but it's not just that, and of course, the ICE yesterday just detained, and we're going to talk about this later. Just detained an actual congressional staffer inside the Capitol, inside the House. It's completely unhinged. But like, part of all this, and what I look for is like these databases, as we mentioned, are predictive algorithms, or force multipliers. But based on the and they'll be targeted, I think, kind of like based on the material conditions of a region, where the hotspots for rebellion, for crime, excellent. We shall increase police pressure in that area by 25%. And, it's not just this database. We also have real ID enforcement, surveillance, stable coins, AI biometric entry exit systems, Palantir, of course, building this massive database, which is our focus, FedEx trucks equipped with license plates readers, ICE using facial recognition to monitor online dissent. And like, they're even using this kind of stuff to track down women in other states that have had abortions in Texas. So it's all part of this like one system. And the more and more integrated it gets, the more and more efficient and dangerous it's going to be. So 2025, directed by George Orwell.
No, real. It's terrible. We're going to create this country that is just built upon algorithmic punishment. And it's going to completely take away due process and accountability and all of those things. And pretty soon we're not even a democracy anymore. We're pretty much a shell of one right now, pretty much. But it's like so scary to imagine truly the foundation of the United States being built upon this like algorithmic punishment. There's no gray area, there's no leeway, no due process. You can't speak for yourself. You can't defend yourself. It's just like, hey, this computer told us you're wrong. And this computer found an anomaly or, an XYZ was wrong. And they flagged you. So you're out. Thank you. And like, that's it. Like, this is it. This is what we have,
Yeah, and there's a reason for this. You don't think these techno-feudal robber baron oligarchs agonize over this shit? Like, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know how people may eventually respond. And in the end, all of this is happening because they're scared. I mean, it's happening because of the entire capitalist system, but it's happening in this specific way because people eventually respond. In the end, they're scared of the consequences of being like these global techno-feudal barons. And let's just look at Peter Thiel. I mean, this is the best demonstration of one of their motivations and what's partially driving this. Peter Thiel on Piers Morgan after Luigi allegedly shot the United Healthcare CEO.
Those who think this shooter is
Oh yeah, shout out to Piers Morgan Uncensored for blocking me on X. Yeah, real uncensored, buddy.
a hero because he did it because he said this healthcare executive was presiding over a healthcare system which kills thousands of Americans by denying them cover. What would you say to them?
I don't know what to say. I still think you should try to make an argument, and I think this is there may be things wrong with our healthcare system, but you have to make an argument, and you have to try to find a way to convince people and change it by that. And this is not going to work. And I don't know.
Excellent argument. I love
That's so painful. That's so painful to watch.
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think apparently allegedly shooting a CEO in downtown Manhattan was a pretty good argument because he couldn't make a counter argument to it. Second of all, why does Peter Thiel always look so moist? Like, is he coming out of some like primordial like ageless billionaire primordial goo? Like, he's always wet.
No, they do the saunas and the cold plunges. That he's trying to get into that.
Oh, isn't like, don't they use like salmon semen or something as well?
Yes, for your skin. I saw that. I see that actually is a thing.
A salmon semen type of guy, though.
He does.
Definitely a salmon semen.
They probably waterboard him to make sure he gets it right before he goes out. That's why he's all wet.
I think I'll sorry, someone keeps texting me. I think I will just stick with the Korean skincare routine and skip that. I'll skip the billionaire stuff.
I'm gonna stick with my coconut oil. But I just want to say I do see this as a weak point for these tech billionaires. I think the fact that these are run by dorky tech billionaires is actually a weak point because it's harder for your average Americans to relate to those people. So it makes it less palatable. So I think that if the Peter Thiels of the world came in the form of a more relatable American, this would be going a lot more smoothly. And I think that personally, if I were to make a prediction, and this is not me just being positive, I'm not just being optimistic here, I'm just being logical here. I think that the branding of all this, they're playing their hand too soon. I think that by the fact that the Palantir is now affecting immigrants, preppers, the anti-vaxxer crowd, your patriot crowd, your labor unions, I think because all of this is getting packaged together, it's starting to send red flags across the board to the point where everybody's going to be on the same page. What we do once we're on that same page, how we unite is a different story. But I do think that they're playing their hand too soon. I think that they have their hands in the cookie jar. They're trying to grab too many cookies out of it, and it's just going to create a shit show, and it's going to break the glass. It's going to break the jar. That's my prediction, and that's not me being optimistic. I'm just following this through, because if MAGA's already disintegrating, and we're barely 6 months into the administration.
Yeah.
You should have waited.
Do you really feel like they're disintegrating? I know Elon Musk is like leaving politics now.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the hierarchy. I'm talking about your average American MAGA.
Okay.
I never try to pay attention to what's happening up in the hierarchy, because that's not indicative of what's happening on the ground. I have always been concerned about what Americans are thinking, what is going on in their heads right now, because what is going on in the average American mind is what dictates how this will go, in my opinion. And that's just where I stand on things.
So you think like it's being it's probably fractured because of these, premature actions, in your opinion?
I do. I think just because we're such a multicultural society and we're all integrated, and I think that all these issues are blending in with each other, like your patriot prepping, your Second Amendment people, your anti-vax people, your pro-immigrant people, you start mushing all these people in a soup. They're all connected with each other in some way, shape, or form, regardless of degrees of separation. And I think that now that where all these groups are starting to be affected by Palantir, and it's going to start creating like some type of galvanization within the public. How that plays out, though, is all dependent on us and how we play our cards. As we know, liberals are, pardon the term, the cock blockers of unity in here, because usually they apologize for these types of things rolling out when it's done by Democrats, but they don't have that cover anymore.
Wow, dude.
Sorry.
Perfect.
I had it.
No. That was good, because that was a perfect segue into what your case in point. Because yesterday, ICE don't know how they were determining who to wrap up, but they went in, and we're still getting information on this, but they went into the congressional offices on Capitol Hill, and they detained a staffer, a White House staffer. We can assume that she was legally there, as we play this video of Hakeem Jeffries, Senate Minority Leader, completely laying out to CNN exactly what the Democrats are going to do with this. Is, if you're just listening to the audio, because I know most of you guys are audio listeners, there will be a cut splicing in between the actual detention video and Hakeem Jeffries' CNN interview the night after it happened, being last night. Let me pull it up. Here we go. Send it.
Adler said that DHS agents entered his congressional office on Wednesday without a warrant and handcuffed a member of his staff.
No, she did not. That is not what happened.
That is not what happened. Okay?
What?
Hold on a second.
You have contact information right
No,
now.
I'm going to give you time to speak to you.
Hey.
That's what I'm
I'll
going to
speak to
do.
you later.
We got you.
No.
We got you.
You're
okay.
I don't have to go.
You're okay. You're okay.
This is not your fault.
You're going to be okay.
I'm a federal officer. We're here checking on something. We have the right to check. I'm
Can I
giving
see a
you.
warrant?
I'm not resisting. Stop resisting. You harboring rioters in the office.
What are you doing now that the red line you talked about has apparently been crossed?
In terms of how we will respond
This is Hakeem Jeffries.
to what Trump and the administration has endeavored to do, we will make that decision in a time, place, and manner of our choosing, but the response will be continuous and it will meet the moment that is required.
What exactly does that mean? Have you not
It gets worse.
decided how to respond?
We've publicly responded in a variety of different ways. We haven't let our foot off the gas pedal in terms of additional things that may take place with respect to our congressional oversight authority and capacity. We will respond in a time, place, and manner of our choosing if this continues to happen.
I love generic answers like that. They're the best.
That is pretty great. He doesn't know where she is. They're not doing. He hasn't let his foot off the gas pedal. He didn't even dream about it. He doesn't even know what's going on. He doesn't even know what's going on.
I want to start
No.
learning that generic language when I'm arguing with my wife. You know, I'm putting my foot on that. I'm gonna start talking like that.
Boil the ocean, things like that. No, but nowhere is safe. And this doesn't worry people because it's not them. And this is something that I keep saying to colleagues, peers, people I'm 24, I'm fairly young. So I say it to my peers around me is I'm like, they don't care. And I'm like, you don't care because it hasn't happened to you yet, but it will. The only reason, don't think it can't happen to you because it will. And we're moving away from, even immigration into just if you attend a protest into saying something that goes against, the Western establishment and things like that. And people aren't afraid enough. They're not afraid enough. And it's because it hasn't touched them yet. And I think Americans, we've been comfortable for a very long time. And so we've been comfortable for a very long time. And so we are kind of morally disengaged from these things because historically we haven't really been shaken up or touched in these ways yet within the last 15 years, I want to say. And so now that these things are happening now, it's touching your average American, it's shaking your average American, it's getting really close to home. Like we said, it's the anti-vaxxers, it's, the wide group of people that outwardly wouldn't have a lot in common, ideologically or politically or morally, but they're coming together because now the Trump administration is umbrellaing us. You know what I mean? And so people aren't afraid enough, and they're not taking this serious. And it's just because we have a serious disengagement problem as Americans. Not to generalize, we just really do. Nothing is real enough for us, or for those that don't care yet, in my opinion.
And we're not angry enough. We're not. I hate to use this term. I always use this term as a way of appealing to people on the right. We're not patriotic enough. And meaning, what I mean by that is, I don't mean the nationalist sense. I mean in the sense of if you're a constitutionalist and you really care about the deep core DNA of our founding fathers, even though all that's bullshit because they're slave owners, but regardless, if we're going with the right-wing narrative of the Constitution, then you would think that all this patriotic anger would be especially coming out now. But again, you can convince Americans to go along with anything if you do it under the right branding. And this goes back to deep psychological programming that started a long time ago. We are programmed to view branding. And this all started when you started commercializing everything. Think of all your very witty 90s commercials that make Clorox the thing for your household. All of this is a deep psychological programming to respond to branding. If it's poisonous, it doesn't matter. But if it's the brand name, it's the name you trust. So because of that all played a role with how we're responding now. You can sell a police state to the majority of Americans, especially patriotic Americans, if you brand it just right. And and they did that. And that's why MAGA, I do believe, was a psyop. I do believe that Back the Blue was a psyop. And it all culminated into what we're seeing now. So we respond to branding, and we have to break that. We have to break that commercial programming that we've undergone for the past few decades.
Well, we all know what it is. It's a rejection of, the overriding economic system, and also a sort of class consciousness. Because I talk about this a lot. All these oligarchic tech dudes like Larry Ellison, Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, freaking Lucky Palmer, Anduril Industries, they're all on the same page. Let's look at another guy who founded Oracle based off of again, just like Palantir, CIA venture capital, Larry Ellison. I can't believe he lives in Austin. Oh my God. Here we go. Talking at a conference in New Orleans a couple years ago.
Will be on their best behavior because we're constantly watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation that occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified. It's not people that are looking at those cameras, it's AI that's looking at the camera. No, you can't do this. It would be like a shooting. That's going to be immediately. That's going to be an event that's immediately. An alarm is going to go off. It's going to be, and we're going to have supervision. In other words, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times.
So will you.
And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person, whether it's the sheriff or the chief or whomever we need to take control of the situation.
Very confidence inspiring the way they speak. Sorry, I keep getting called and I don't have headphones on my trip. But anyways, very confidence inspiring how they speak.
Yeah, this political conformity at the end of the day is like what I'm thinking. Like they're very excited and it makes them very happy. The idea of like this panopticon society, like it's happy. They're very happy with this, and it's because of the end result is just ultimate control. But it's this performative conformity, and if they're talking about this this state of total surveillance, what does this say about political, like our political alliances and our political loyalty to whatever side we believe in, right? That's going to be squashed. That will no longer exist. Your number tanks if you move the wrong way. It's a very scary reality, and I agree with you. We're not patriotic or angry enough. So it's very worrisome.
Well, absolutely. I also want to. You guys are gonna absolutely love this. So the question is, how did religion play a role in all this, and what did Christianity have to do with Palantir, and how did it kind of set the stage for possibly acclimating Christians on board with this? I'm going to share this screen. This is an article from Law Enforcement Today. I don't know if you guys can see this. So you're going to absolutely love this. Okay, so prayer.com and AI systems builder Palantir partnership. So this is as part of getting Christians kind of acclimated to using AI for the sake of spreading the gospel. Check this out. So Denver, Colorado, according to Business Wire, pray.com is the #1 app for Christians who access daily prayer and faith-based content. Now the faith-based app has partnered with Palantir Technologies, a leading builder of artificial intelligence system. And by the way, this article was in back in January. Actually, I'm surprised. I thought this was older. So Business Wire noted that pray.com immediately recognized the challenges of translating its content to multiple languages due to the cost of staffing and other issues. The outlet wrote that pray.com was looking for software to automate the manual and costly process with the system built and tested by scale. By utilizing Palantir's ontology software development kit, OSDK, pray.com has been able to process transcripts and translations content at a quality of native language speakers. So check this out. With where is it at? With pray.com's incredible content voiced by some of the most influential voices in faith and our expanding global reach, we knew we needed a solution to deliver high-quality programming across multiple languages. Beck said, I was impressed by Palantir's reputation and their years of pioneering AI applications. So here's let me get to the good part. So prayer, get this part. Prayer existed 10,000 years ago, and prayer will exist 10,000 years from now. Thanks to Palantir, pray.com can protect and defend religious liberty on a global scale. Pray.com founder CEO Steve Gatana. So the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because every sector of our society played a role in building the throne and building the room for Palantir to walk into and occupy. Right. So this was
it's not just genius. Military industrial. Yeah, it really is. It's a hell of a
super genius.
And I'm glad you brought up the prayer.com thing, because all of these talking points are echoed by CEOs, Palantir CEO Alex Karp. And I'm going to play a clip in a second, but yes, God damn it.
Can you just mute it? God, just switch.
I can't. I don't know how.
There's a little button right here. You just click it. Just click it.
You know what? I need Palantir to come on and use AI to figure out how to get people to stop texting me while I'm trying to record. But anyways, he echoes all these talking points, the neocon warhawk talking points, the Western supremacist talking points, the prayer talking points, the law enforcement talking points. This was from last year. Alex Karp.
Are the most loving, God-fearing, fair, least discriminatory people on the planet. And they
He said Americans are that.
want to know that if you're waking up and thinking about harming American citizens, or if American citizens are taken hostage and kept in dungeons, or if you're a foreign power sending fentanyl to poison our people, something really bad is going to happen to you and your friends and your cousins and your bank account and your mistress and whoever was involved. And, you know, when Americans are spending $1 trillion on defense, what I want and what I think my peers want is, why are these people keeping our citizens hostage, torturing our people, attacking our allies, maligning us in what was once called the United Nations, basically a discriminatory institution against anything good? We need to stand up, and those people need to be scared. And that's why this conference is so important, because we have the best products in the world, and we cannot have parity. Our adversaries do not have our moral compunction. If it's even, they will take advantage of our niceness, kindness, our desire to be at home in Nebraska or New Hampshire or wherever we live in our peaceful environments. And they need to wake up scared and go to bed scared. And if you give that to the American people will go back and say, and honestly, probably shouldn't say this is why I thought the Democrats were going to lose the election, why they did, because people want to live in peace. They want to go home. They do not want to hear your woke pagan ideology. They want to know they're safe. And safe means that the other person is scared. That's how you make someone safe.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, woke pagan ideology, you know, he said at the beginning, like, Americans are the most prayer loving, like, people. But here's like the imperial boomerang in full effect. It's like, we want our foreign adversaries to wake up scared. You know, if they step out of line, there cannot be parity. But also, we know from colonial history that it's going to happen to you too. They want you on your best behavior and to wake up scared.
It's so genius, dude. It's so genius.
You think?
How they word things. They word things to appeal to the different aspects of American society that was built upon during the Bush era. You know, warring against some foreign ideology that's overseas somewhere, the boogeyman that's coming to take your American values. And he's co-opting all this language using religion. These guys aren't religious at all. These are tech bros.
Yeah, they're mostly transhumanists who want to live forever.
So you throw in the word pagan, and what that does is that activates the part of the brain of your average like Christian evangelical is like, pagan. Oh my God, you're right. This woke stuff is pagan.
Yeah. So where were you gonna?
It's genius.
No, I was going to say, back to, you know, tying into this, but also back to prayer.com. You know that he's also an investor and I believe receives data from the Hollow app.
What is the Hollow app?
It's for Catholics. It's a huge Catholic app with Mark Wahlberg and Caviezel and things like that. And so they get your first, your last, your email, your prayer entries, which could not go wrong at all. Like, I think that's actually a super great idea to give my prayer entries and tell my thoughts and concerns.
Wow. Oh my God. That's genius too.
I know.
How better way to get intimate with people and get their intimate, you know,
I know,
into life than a confessional.
Exactly. So that I can confess to him and he can tell me exactly what I want to hear. So I think that's great.
You know, this is so great because I mean that was one of the main mechanisms of like church control in the Middle Ages. It was confessionals and the Eucharist. And now this is our new religion. It's so exciting.
This is amazing.
I'm in awe. This is genius. This was a genius strategy. It completely. But not to mention the fact that the champion of conservative Christian values, the Heritage Foundation, has been the one pushing cooperation and integration with Palantir. So, and just FYI, so my dad, he's a pastor. He was a chaplain in the Army, so he follows all of these like newsletters from these organizations, including the Heritage Foundation. And I told him straight up, I told my dad, I said, Dad, you realize that the Heritage Foundation pushed the Patriot Act. They're huge champions of that. They were huge champions of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. They are not, they are completely a PSYOP. They are a PSYOP to control the conservative Christian world of the United States. and they're pushing Palantir. So the reason why that's important to highlight, and the reason why I'm emphasizing this, is because my personal call to action is that if you're on like the left and you're monitoring all this, and no doubt you have family members or friends who are in that conservative Christian world, start connecting the dots here with them.
So it's all to protect the interests of the 1% and the ruling class.
Which are who? The people who went to Little St. James. So if you connect those dots, hopefully they'll get like, oh, I get it now.
And it ends here. And Jalissa has to go soon, so I'm going to play this and ask her a couple more questions. But yeah, to really bring this home, we have our good friend Charlie Kirk taking a massive L about how taxing billionaires violates the 10 Commandments.
40 years, the wealth in this country, the wealth inequality has increased, which is the top 1% has grabbed the wealth of the majority bottom.
There are reasons why that's happened, but just so we are clear.
Why is that happening?
I'm happy to explain that. Just so we are clear, saying we're going to just raise tax on the billionaires, that statement, you just violated 2 out of the 10 commandments.
That's not true.
Thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not covet. We're going to go take other people's money.
How is that stealing?
Because it's their money.
We live in a society that is run by taxes. How is that stealing?
Well, taxations are a form of theft, definitionally. Because it's not the government's money. It is private property that you earn when the government extracts it by force.
Someone breaks into your house, you call the police. When you have a fire, you call the fireman. When you want to drive, you drive on roads. When you want to mail, you use the U.S. Post Office. These are all taxes. Yeah, we all contribute as a society.
Of course.
This is elementary stuff. It's not theft. How do you run a society without taxes?
What happens if you don't pay your taxes?
I mean, you get the law handed to you, but...
Oh, okay, so therefore, so you pay taxes at gunpoint.
If you break the law, you should pay the fine.
No, exactly. That's the point, is that taxes are not voluntary. Nor do I think they should be voluntary. You just have to be honest and say, yes, at some form, the government has to forcibly take some of your money away. I agree with that. But just, we're
pause it. Okay, so our money is going to, like, okay.
Look, we're not going to unpack it. We're not going to unpack.
Hold on. What I'm saying is that our money is going to billionaires through taxes. So it goes from the private sector to the public sector, back to the private sector. So even in his own logic, our money is going to billionaires that is forcefully taxed upon us. The majority of our tax money is going to healthcare industry and the military industrial complex through the Pentagon. So even by his own logic,
the Bible even then doesn't even condemn having wealth. It's that it's greed. And what I would say to the billionaires who like love God and, they're just such like big evangelists is Matthew 6:24. You cannot serve both God and money.
And mammon.
So
yeah. And compounding interest is also a huge violation of the Torah. Just point that out there.
Oh, nice.
Compounding interest, which is the DNA of capitalism, is a huge sin in the Bible.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Anyways,
but I think, yes, of course, this is all like not really reflected in any sort of biblical teaching. But it's interesting that they're, of course, mobilizing all of this to gaslight everybody into surrendering their rights, freedoms, all in the name of protecting themselves, their community, and I don't know what else. So, like, I don't know. Before you go. Do you think this whole plan is going to work, Jalissa?
I think the plan is going to work because you have useless idiots. I think you have people that are willing to surrender to this if it means that they're being sold the idea that they're being protected. Meanwhile, nothing really improves for them. I think that's a very high reality that we're looking at right now. I think that they've already gone far enough. I think that the only people that are going to save, America from what's going on is the people who are protesting, who are speaking out, journalists, gentlemen like yourselves who are continuing to talk about things like this, because we're I feel like your average American that is okay with this is being sold an idea or a reality that doesn't exist and won't exist. We're just being sold daydreams. We're being lied to. I don't think that any of this will likely come into the fruition that would benefit your average American. You're being stripped away of your fundamental rights to disagree, your fundamental rights to make mistakes at this point, which is where the social credit score comes in. You know what I'm saying? So overall, this is only going to harm us. But as long as they can do it under the guise of health, this is good for your health. This is better for your mental health. This is good. God wants you to do this. Jesus loves you. And this is what Jesus says. I think that it'll pass.
And my final question that I kind of have want your thoughts on is, there's no one's going to stop this, Palantir database from being created. No one's going to stop no one's going to stop the cop cities, which are counterinsurgency training forces, training centers. And it's not going to be people from the inside, because you said yourself, like, people in the defense sector, which you used to work for, are really pumped about this kind of stuff.
Excited. Yeah, they're definitely, this is a very profitable market. These guys, let me tell you, it's a process. You have a capability, is what they call it. You pitch it in a proposal and you tell the government how you would best get the job done, how you would best handle those billions and millions of dollars. That's what you do. And then you get awarded. And then that's it, done. So you make money. It's very profitable. It's very streamlined. It's A to Z. That's it. And so all we can do as a country, as a society, is mobilize against this and continue to fight back. Because if we don't, if we get lazy, if we get comfortable, if we succumb to this defeatist mentality, it's going to get much worse. And right now, it's only going to get worse. They have so much control. They have seized our schools, something we didn't see. Like 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, we didn't see to this degree. They've seized our schools, your workplaces, your healthcare facilities. You know what I'm saying? Now they're infringing on your personal medical records, financial records, marriage records, things like that.
Campaign contributions.
Political
targeting.
We're looking at our
Gun
campaign contributions. Yeah, we're looking at campaign contributions, but what the fuck? We won't register AIPAC as a fucking foreign agent. Like, get the hell out of here. That doesn't even make sense. Like, what are you talking about right now? So, it's only going to get worse. I want to say before it will get better, and that's me being optimistic. But yeah, this is a very profitable industry. These people don't even see anything wrong. They could ideally, go home and be like, man, it really sucks that Palestinians are dying and that, innocent Americans are getting deported to bumfuck Egypt in, Louisiana or some shit in some facility. But then they're like, at the end of the day, I'm getting a $5 billion contract with the United States government. So I win. Like, they're not thinking about this shit. It doesn't exist outside of them.
No, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders.
We do. And our shareholders, we trust right here. This is who I pledge of allegiance.
So I think, thanks. We're going to stay on for another 5 minutes,
Okay.
but you've got a heart out. Jalissa Dugro, you can follow her on Instagram, X, and do you have a YouTube channel yet?
I don't, but it will be coming soon. So maybe next time.
Coming soon. Okay. Linked in the description. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Bye, Mark.
Nice to meet you.
Bye-bye. Yeah, dude. So anyways, yeah, I guess capitalism's always going to be the true God of the United States of America.
And I think that this economic disparity that Americans are facing is also potentially a way of kind of cornering Americans into being desperate for any type of economic relief, which will make us more malleable to whatever they roll out. So if they, and one of the other ways that they can do to expand cooperation with the public is job offers. If they turn this into a job industry where people are getting careers in this field, it will further incentivize Americans to just kind of go along with it. Because it's just a sliver of their revenue. So if they start offering jobs in these tech fields, that provides money for their families, well, then Americans will be more complacent in it because it's providing food on the table, and that's the other problem.
This comes back to I think it was early spring 2024 where we started getting it was after Aaron Bushnell and all these conscientious objectors started getting out of the military because of what's happening in Palestine. And I was getting asked, do you think there'll be more of those? And I said, no, for the exact same reasons you just mentioned. For the security, stability, a lot of these people have families, and
and if you create these bottom feeding jobs in the tech field, whether it be, I don't know, data management or just hard, or even blue collar jobs, like installing data centers and the AC units that have to go in these data centers, installing
if you're a construction contractor, now you have to build one of these big AI data centers. Well, you need a fucking job.
That's the biggest problem I see with Americans, to tack on to what she's saying, is that we are so desperate for careers and jobs that
because of the entire economic system that we suffer under.
Yeah, like you talk to, say, a construction worker who's going to be building a data center that's going to be used for spying on Americans. He's just going to be like, well, it's a job. I got to do it. And it's going to take some conscientious, it's going to take some moral protest of turning down a job that might be involved in rolling out a fascist police state. I want to go kind of
already
like
here.
Yeah. I want to talk about the step-by-step, inform the audience of what a step-by-step process looks like when it comes to Palantir tracking you for, say, like protest. So this is kind of like
cool. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, this is like the flow of things of how it goes. So you post on your social media, Free Palestine, criticizing Israel, and you share footage of the Israeli military, blowing up children. The post is public, so you include hashtags like Free Palestine, from the river to the sea. A social media monitoring tool that's used by DHS, ICE, and local fusion centers flags this post using like keyword scanning, geolocation, facial recognition, and AI image recognition. And then these tools are plugged in directly to Gotham, right?
Gotham is one of Palantir's operating systems.
Right. So step 2 is the entity resolution. So Gotham attempts to identify the individual behind the post. So now it's Gotham's job to say, okay, who posted this? Right. And then it starts mapping you. So it starts cross-referencing who you follow, who follows you, who your relatives might be. It starts integrating all the data as far as your email, your phone number, cross-referencing everything, facial data. So if you have a picture somewhere out online, or and because everything's being integrated with this latest announcement, so the DMV, your driver's license, your passport photo, you were ever at a traffic stop and you got caught on camera, it's going to start integrating all of that, and it's going to start mapping who you are as a person, right? And then it's going to start cross-referencing your IP addresses that you've used. All right. So then step 3 is social network analysis. So once the identity is established, Gotham maps the individual's relationships and influences. So now it's going to start to determine how big of an influence are you, either digitally or physically in your community. So it's going to start mapping who you associate with. So whenever you're next to somebody, right, and you got your phone, somebody has their phone, you have your phone in your pocket, there's data points that show, okay, these two phones were near each other, and they've been near each other before, like 3 days ago. So chances are that phone that you were next to is a regular associate with you, or they're a friend. So now it knows who your friends are, or who your coworkers are, or who you like to hang out with and get coffee with, right? So now then it does cross database linking. That's step 4. Gotham pulls in additional data from government and commercial sources. So now it's bringing in all of the criminal records. It's bringing in all your phone logs, your school records, your utility records, air travel history, and for you right-wingers out there and your general Second Amendment people, gun registration. So if you post Free Palestine online, do you own a gun? Let's find out. Let's find out if this guy owns a gun. Okay, boom. So that means that he is for the liberation of oppressed people, and he has a gun. Super big threat, right? As opposed to now, if you're a MAGA guy and you're pro-Israel and you have a gun, ooh, asset. So we want to start targeting that individual to kind of bring him on the side of the fascist state. Maybe he's an asset to the fascist state.
Because again, we've already established that the government right now is bringing in paramilitary forces as it is along the border with these Christian nationalist militias. They're being deputized by ICE.
Absolutely. So while we were being targeted by Palantir in a negative way, Palantir was trying to find people who are is their army. Palantir they use all types of data points to find out who are the people we can crowdsource to build this new army of fascism that we don't have the money for to hire. They'll just do it willingly. They'll volunteer for this shit. So step 5.
I mean, isn't that the whole like premise of the brown shirts back in
exactly
right?
This is the 2025 brown shirt model. Step 5, threat modeling and behavior scoring. So using predictive policing logic. So remember that word. Predictive policing is where they determine whether or not you are going to be a threat to the system. Right.
Yeah, it's like preliminary thought crime before the actual technology to detect thought crime exists.
Absolutely. And Gotham assigns what's called a risk score based on online activity, any anti-government sentiments. So if you were, and this is where it gets interesting, because if you were an anti-government person during the Obama administration, it doesn't necessarily mean you're an anti-government person today. Because like I said, branding, baby. Do you travel to high risk areas? So if you're a Lebanese American and you travel back and forth from Lebanon, you are a threat just by simple association with the country of origin. Do you attend demonstrations, law enforcement or agency notification? So once a flag is raised, agencies are notified. So now federal agencies and law enforcement arms are now flagging you and ready to go if need be. So they have everything mapped out where you live. So they know that if they want to raid your house, they'll know exactly how far away it is, what the points of entry are going to be, what that neighborhood's like, what roads they have to cut off, and then raid your home. And then you got ongoing monitoring, which is number 7. Number 7 is the final one. So even without immediate action, the individual's file says hot in Gotham. So if you're, let's say they don't take any action against you, you're still on the list and you're still hot, meaning they're going to keep monitoring you for indefinitely, right? Now, here's a possible call to action, and here's a possible response.
Yeah, well,
right?
we need a possible call to action and a possible response, because based off of that, it's going to be a hot boy and hot girl and hot non-binary pal.
It's gonna be a hot boy, hot girl summer, baby. Let me tell you, we're not even in summer yet, and it's already getting hot.
Yeah. Okay. What's the call to action?
Okay, the call to action, and this is where we can actually, I don't know, mitigate this. And it, first and foremost, stay unpredictable. That is key. And this is the X factor, the variable that no matter how sophisticated Palantir is, they will not be able to defend against this. And this is where you are completely power. The power is completely in your hands, my dear viewer. When I tell you to reach out to right-wing people and start turning them over to our side and start educating them, it is not just because I want us to hold hands and sing Kumbaya together. It is
never going to happen.
Never going to happen. It is very strategic, is what I'm saying. If you can convert somebody who is formally on board with this fascism and connect these dots, just like she was pointing out, you were pointing out, I've been pointing out for the past fucking year. If you can turn them, you now turn that potential asset that Palantir was targeting this whole time in a positive way and turning them against it. So this is where all that predictive policing and all these predictive models, you completely throw it off. You completely nullify it, and you throw
you fuck with the algorithm, so to speak.
You fuck with the algorithm. You throw a wrench in the gears, and it completely, and therefore all the modeling that they have spent billions of dollars of building is completely useless, because now the people who they thought were assets are now liabilities, right? And it'll just keep spreading. So at a certain point, we're hoping the goal here is that the people who are actually going to be the crowdsourced assets for the fascist state are going to be so small in number, and at which point we're just going to find them and beat the fuck out of them, punching them.
Yeah.
So the whole point is
that's a good call to action.
Yeah, and it is where we have power. We do have power in this scenario, because the Palantir cannot stop you from walking down the street and talking to your right-wing Second Amendment neighbor and be like, "Hey, have you heard about Palantir? Do you know what they're doing? Do you realize that all the suffering in Gaza and all the suffering by immigrants and your suffering as an American is all connected? You want to join up?" Palantir can't stop that from happening. All they can do is everything that they do is digitally, meaning they can only flood your For You page with shit that tries to psychologically turn you. But if you're countering that with physical interaction that's more personal, Palantir will never be able to be as intimate as you can to the people around you. Just saying.
And also,
there's my call to action.
And also, yeah, to piggyback off that, unlearn imperialism's violent conditioning. Learn what's happening, organize where you are, act in ways that make everybody more free, which means also getting, not just going to pro-Palestine stuff, but going to other activist spaces as well.
And
so like, oh, is the guy who's been to 5 other pro-Palestine marches going to show up to another one? Yeah, so mix it up. Go to like Wellani Defense Society stuff and be like, hey, stop bombing the environment.
Start going to places also that are not even connected with liberation or oppressed groups. Start infiltrate. Look, they've been infiltrating us. Why can't we infiltrate them?
Church, baby.
Church, go, dude. I swear, even though I would never step foot in
I can't bring my. I'm not yet.
I can't do it either.
Dude.
I swore off churches years ago. No, don't ever get, dude. I swear, Greg. If you ever get to the point of going to a church, I'm gonna fucking shoot myself. So don't you ever fucking do that. I'll be fucking freaked out if you do that, bro.
My church are black. My version of church is the local black metal concert.
Yeah, or you and I will do a peyote ceremony and a teepee, and that's about it, bro. All
right.
So infiltrate right-wing spaces. Infiltrate, befriend them, just like the CIA does. All the tactics that the CIA uses to infiltrate, we can do the same thing. There's nothing stopping us. So one of y'all has got to be the fall guy. One of y'all has to.
Hang on. But I will say, like, it's not a clear-cut thing between the CIA and FBI because they are the state. They control the laws and the apparatus of violence, and they are centralized. So when we say infiltrate, just do it in your own community. Be like, hey, what I do is be like, hey, right-wing podcast, have me on. There we go. And I don't do anything crazy. And also, what we do as what we could call a resistance movement would be to completely decentralize. I don't know. I don't need to know what you're doing in fucking Seattle, dude. Just do it.
Yeah. Like just your local community is what I'm saying. I'm not saying infiltrate I'm not saying drive up to Langley.
Don't apply to the FBI. Like that's not what we're talking about.
No. Don't go to Quantico. Don't go to Langley. No. That's not what I'm saying. Go to your local. Find the right wing spaces in your local community, and just show up and be like, hey, bruh, like you like guns? I like guns too, bruh. Like, hey,
I'd work on that a little bit, the approach, but yeah.
No. Do it exactly like I just said to do. But find common ground. Here's your roadmap. Find common ground. One thing that right-wing spaces definitely are down for: Epstein conspiracy theories. Easy in, baby. You like guns? Easy in. They like guns. Start talking about the deep state, but then but try to reframe the deep state to include the top of into capitalism,
into a critique of capitalism. And here's the thing: some of these people are going to be really problematic and bigoted, but you know what destroys bigotry and racism? Class consciousness.
Exactly. Yeah. You're going to have the tough skin. You can't be as sensitive. And mind you, I encourage people who are the least vulnerable to do this. If you are part of a vulnerable demographic, I am not asking you if you're part of a vulnerable demographic to go do this because you're putting yourself and your own mental health at risk. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about your people who you're good. You're not too sensitive. You're not going to be emotionally affected too much by it. You can afford some to hear offensive things around you, and try to have a thicker skin and try to get past the point. Work your way around those conversations that turn racist or bigoted or whatever, and just try to seduce them. See, Americans are like,
and if you don't want to do that, there's plenty of other roles in this whole thing. We're just doing a call to action for those willing to do it.
Exactly.
I am personally privileged enough to do it as a white dude who was in the military. I can gain access to these spaces a lot easier than pretty much anybody. So, and
I'm a redneck bro, and I'm dumb, so I can speak dumbass. So,
anyways, guys, that's the call to action. I just want to basically say that this didn't come with the Trump administration. Everybody knows this. This has been building, this Palantir thing. We are coming to an inflection point where it's the material conditions and the suppression are going to get potentially so bad that people are going to have to start waking up and wake up from the American dream, which never existed. You only, can believe in it if you're sleeping. But this started in the 1700s with the lantern laws for non-white people, slave patrols, wiretapping in the late 19th century, National Bureau of Identification, 1900s, the Palmer raids, COINTELPRO, Nixon's enemy list, SCOTA affirms the constitutionality of police wiretapping, NYPD using it to suppress labor activism during the Vietnam War, like 2000s, you've got Snowden, the Patriot Act. Like, this has been building. You can't even just blame it on Bush and freaking the Patriot Act and the post 9/11. So here we are. This is at the most bold-faced manifestation where it's ever going to be. Central database. Everything's run by AI. You are mapped. You are pin mapped. You are part of predictive models. Break out of it. We don't think they're going to win because
up the map.
historically they've never won. This might be a long, shitty, dark period, but you're not alone, and we're all in the same predictive model together.
And I just want to
Isn't
point
that
out
nice?
that it is nice. And I just want to point out that this, as sophisticated as this system is, the more sophisticated a system is, the more delicate it is. Remember that. These systems are very delicate, meaning it only takes a few variables to throw everything off, in which case they have to build from the ground up. When they go high tech, we go low tech. I'm telling you, low tech low tech methods can completely throw off very sophisticated measures. And mind you, one of their biggest
it's working. It's working in
working
Palestine.
in Gaza, worked in Vietnam. So and it worked with the Native Americans. The only thing that defeated the Native Americans was biological warfare. That was it. The Native Americans would have won. Mass starvation. Well, they had food. It's just that combine that with biological warfare, they weren't able to fight. And but either way, my point is that this system is very delicate. It only takes a few variables. It depends on if you are going to be egocentric and not try to form some type of class solidarity, or you're just gonna stay in your own little social bubble and just hunker down and build your own little bunker. And
liberalism has failed. You're either a community oriented socialist or a fascist. There's no longer really any middle ground. So you got to decide what you're about. And I'm sitting on this couch and my butt hurts because
that's a beautiful background. What is? Can you show us what's behind you a little bit? I want to see Belfast. I want to see.
Well, it's just a suburb of Belfast.
It's okay. Yeah. It's still Ireland.
Yeah,
that's a nice little place you're at.
Yeah.
Little,
place. But anyways, I gotta wrap up. I got a hard out. Make it
one more thing. Militias are legal. Just saying. It is legal to form a militia, and it makes you look patriotic, and it also appeals to the right wingers. Just saying.
Yeah, they also get tracked. Okay.
They get tracked.
We can talk about that later on Patreon, which we are on. And if we ever get destroyed off of YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, you can join us on Patreon, where all of our regular content, like this episode, is free, no paywall. So subscribe to us on Patreon. And of course, if you want some sort of payroll, we do have exclusive content, but you don't have to worry about that. Check us out there. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review, because we're trying to break 1,000 so we get pushed into another algorithm. All right. Cheers, y'all. This has been an episode on Palantir. And check out Jalissa, linked in the description. Cheers, and see you next time, y'all. Bye.